Hello everyone. Today I am going to discuss about coagulant agents, or it is also known as coagulants. In this lecture we will discuss about coagulation process, coagulants, classification of coagulant agents and explanation of different coagulants. So first start with coagulation process. This is a complex process that also involves positive feedback system, right? And only a few stages are included here to understand the coagulation process, because it is complex process, right? Here only important part included which will target in coagulation process. In the coagulation process, the various factors are involved, right? And their numbers represent the order in which they were discovered and not the order of participation in the clotting factors or clotting process, right? Different clotting factors are indicated by using their numbers, right? Like factor 1, factor 2, factor 3, factor 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 likewise, right? This number represent the order in which they were discovered, right? The number does not indicate the order of participation of that factor into the coagulation process. So, right? See, coagulation process. Let's start with first this final stage. See, this prothrombin 2 is converted into thrombin 2 or 2 is the factor 2 is known as the prothrombin, right? Factor 2 is known as prothrombin. So, prothrombin is converted into thrombin, or in short factor 2 converted into factor 2A, right? 2A, that means it is activated factor, right? 2 or prothrombin is inactive factor, it is converted into activated factor, right? And this activated thrombin or factor 2A initiate the activation of fibrinogen or factor 1 to factor 1A, right? Or fibrinogen to fibrin, right? And this fibrin, with the help of activated 13A factor, converted or make the cross-linked fibrin clot, that is the coagulants or clot of blood, right? This is the coagulation process. But here 10A, this one, 10A is the prothrombin activator protein or factor, right? And this is obtained by two processes, right? Two processes, intrinsic and extrinsic, right? Intrinsic and extrinsic pathway, right? Intrinsic pathway, that means that is triggered or initiated within circulation or due to circulation, and extrinsic pathway, that is triggered or initiated outside the circulation, right? So any tissue damage, right, or damaged tissue releases the complex, that is thromboplastin or tissue factor, that is known as the tissue factor, right? Any tissue damage lead to the release of this chemical or complex, that is thromboplastin or tissue factor, right? This extrinsic pathway occurs rapidly within seconds, right? And which initiates the coagulation, right? This factor initiate the activation of factor 7, this factor 7 converted into activated factor 7A. This 7A again activate the factor 10 to 10A, right? And this 10A is the prothrombin activator factor which initiate the activation of prothrombin to thrombin and make the coagulation process complete, right? In another side, that is intrinsic pathway is slower, that is 3 to 6 minutes, right? And that is confined to the circulation, right? And it is triggered by the damage of a blood vessel lining, that is endothelium, right? And activate this damaged surface of the blood vessels, activate the factor 12 to 12A, right? This activated factor 12 then initiate the activation of factor 11 to 11A. Now this again this activated factor 11 cause the activation of factor 9 to 9A, right? And finally this activated factor 9 activate the factor 10 to 10A, and this 10A is the prothrombin activator protein, right, which activate the prothrombin into the thrombin. Then this thrombin activate the fibrinogen into the fibrin, and this activated fibrin make the clot, right, and complete the coagulation process. This is the overview of the coagulation process, right? So from this process or chart, we can say that different clotting factors are very essential and important for the coagulation process, right? Damage or defect in any factor or lack of any coagulation factor leads to the inhibition of coagulation process, right? So each and every coagulation factor are very important for the normal coagulation process within the body. Now coagulants. These are agents which promote coagulation and are indicated in hemorrhage states, right? Different hemorrhagic states require the coagulation process, right? And if this not occur naturally, then coagulants are used to promote the coagulation process, right? These agents have clinical importance as they are used in the hemophilia. Hemophilia, that means a disorder in which or condition in which blood does not clot normally, right? So when normally blood cannot clot, then coagulants are used. Then von Willebrand's disease. It is a bleeding disorder that is caused by low level of clotting protein in the blood, right? Due to low level of clotting protein or clotting factor into the blood, normally bleeding occur. Coagulation process does not occur and bleeding occur, right? This condition is known as the von Willebrand's disease, and to manage this condition coagulants can be used, right? It is also used in the therapy for bleeding following fibrolytic treatment, right? When fibrolytic treatment is used, that will lead to the fibrolysis, that will lead to the inhibition of the clotting, right? So during this treatment, when inhibition of clotting increases, then this type of coagulants or therapy is used, right? And prophylaxis in rebleeding of intracranial aneurysms, right? Aneurysms is nothing but the ballooning and weakened area in an artery, right? Inside the artery, when ballooning area is produced which becomes weakened area, right, weak area, and this often occurs in this type of condition or ballooning area, weak area often develops in the aorta, brain, back of knee, intestine or spleen, right, and the ruptured aneurysms can result in internal bleeding, right, and stroke, right. When this ballooning area becomes weakened and when it ruptured, then bleeding occur, right, internal bleeding occur, and sometimes it can be fatal, right. So in this type of condition, to prevent the bleeding in aneurysms, coagulants can be used. Now, classification. Generally, fresh whole blood or plasma provide the entire factor, right. Fresh whole blood or plasma provide the whole factor needed for the coagulation, right, and it is the best therapy for the deficiency of any clotting factor, right. Generally, coagulants required during the deficiency of clotting factor or excess of bleeding occur in large injuries, right. So when clotting factor deficiency is occurred, then in that type of condition, fresh whole blood or plasma provide the each and every clotting factors, right, and also they act immediately, right. In many conditions, other drugs are used as coagulants, which are vitamin K, then antifibrinolytic agents and miscellaneous agents, right. Let's see one by one examples and structure. Vitamin K, that is obtained again classified into three categories. First one is obtained from plant, second one is produced from bacteria, and third one is synthetic vitamin K. First, vitamin K, which is obtained from the plant, example is phylloquine, right, example is phylloquine. This is the structure of vitamin K, which has the naphthaquinone ring, right, having the side chain, right. Then vitamin K, which is produced from bacteria, example is menaquinones. Different menaquinones are produced with different N symbol, right. Here vary or changes in N, that will lead to the changes in or production of different menaquinones, right. This isomer N, that means number 1, 2, 3, right. So here this isomer or this group is repeated as number of N is increased, right. Then vitamin K, that is obtained by synthetic process, that is synthetic vitamin K. Example are menadione, right, menadione and acetaminophthalate, right. This one is the different vitamin K or synthetic vitamin K. And in synthetic vitamin K also, these vitamins, vitamin K are fat soluble or lipid soluble, right. Next, vitamin K which are synthesized or synthetic vitamin K which are water soluble. They are nothing but the salt of fat soluble vitamin, menadione sodium bisulfite and menadione sodium diphosphate, right. all are have the again naphtha-quinone ring, right? All vitamin K have naphtha-quinone ring. Then classification of vitamin K of second class, that is anti-fibrinolytic agents. Examples are tranexamic acid and aminocaproic acid, right? Here in tranexamic acid, it contains cyclohexane ring. Simply, cyclohexane ring having amino group in side chain as well as carboxylic acid group, right? And in aminocaproic acid also has the amino group and carboxylic acid group, but it has the long chain of carbon of 6, right? And here 6 carbon are present in cyclic structure, that's why it is cyclohexane, right? So both are similar in molecular formula, right? Both have the 6 carbon atom, both have the carboxylic acid group and 1 amino group, right? But differing the structure. Then miscellaneous agents which can be used as coagulants are fibrinogens, anti-hemophilic agents, adrenochrome, monosemicarbazole, rutin ethamsilate and protamine, right? These are the different coagulants or coagulant agents. First one is vitamin K. Vitamin K is fat-soluble dietary principle and that is required for the synthesis of clotting factor, as we know that, right? It is required for biological activity of prothrombin and factor 7, 9 and 10, right? So it is very important. Biological, it is required for biological activity of prothrombin, factor 7, factor 9 and 10, right? And they are available from diet and also synthesized by human intestinal bacteria, right? And synthetic form can be water soluble, as we seen in classification and examples of vitamin K, right? Synthetic vitamin K can be fat soluble as well as water soluble form, right? All members of the vitamin K group of vitamins share a methylated naphtha-quinone ring structure, right? That one is also we have seen in the structure of vitamin K. All have are naphtha-quinone as well as having the methyl group. That's why methylated naphtha-quinone ring structure, that is known as menadione, right? And they are very in the aliphatic side chain with that is attached at the 3rd position, right? Phylloquinone, that is also known as the vitamin K1, invariably contains it in its side chain 4 isoprenoid residues, right? One of which is unsaturated isoprenoid residue, right? Generally, they are designated as MKN, small n, right? MK, small n, right? As n vary, then menacquinones vary, right? Then naphtha-quinone is functional group, right? Naphtha-quinone is functional group of the all vitamin K, right? So it is generally accepted that naphtha-quinone is the functional group, so that the mechanism of action of all vitamin K is similar, right? And substantial differences may be expected with respect to intestinal absorption, transport, tissue distribution and bioavailability, as the 3 side chain varies, right? But mechanism of action for all vitamin K is similar due to functional group naphthalene is similar in all, right? As side chain vary in all vitamin K, that's why that may be see difference into the intestinal absorption, transport and tissue distribution as well as bioavailability, right? Vitamin K has basic naphthalene structure, right? With or without side chain, as we know that, right? The side chain in K1, that is phytyl group, in K2, that is prenyl group, and in K3 no side chain, right? Other structures of vitamin K1, K2 and K3 are similar, right? K1 that is obtained from natural source, K2 that is obtained from bacteria or produced by bacteria, and K3 that is synthetic vitamin K. Then mechanism of action of vitamin K. As we know that vitamin K is involved into the biological activity of different clotting factor, that is prothrombin, factor 7, factor 9 and factor 10, right? So this vitamin K involved into the carboxylation of glutamate residue, right? Vitamin K dependent change conforms on the in the factors, right? And that changes is the carboxylation of glutamate residue, right? This glutamate residue of zymosyl protein, that is a part of this different factor, right? This glutamate residue are part of different clotting factor, that is of prothrombin, factor 7, 9 and 10, right? This glutamate residue present in different clotting factor, right? So for the activation of this different clotting factor, carboxylation of this clotting factor is required, and carboxylation of specific glutamate residue, this one, right? So here monocarboxylated glutamate residue is present. It undergoes carboxylation process in the presence of enzyme carboxylase. And in this process vitamin K acts as cofactor, right? Act as cofactor. So simultaneously when carboxylation reaction occur, what happen in presence of carboxylase? This glutamate residue undergoes the carboxylation and new carboxylic acid group is added, right? During this process vitamin K acts as cofactor and vitamin K, which is in hydroquinone form, converted into the vitamin K 2,3 epoxide form, right? See here, epoxide form is generated, right? During this process, carboxylation of this glutamate residue of prothrombin and other factors, these changes in vitamin K occur. Now, this vitamin K 2,3 epoxide converted into vitamin K quinone by reduction reaction. And thus this reduction reaction is catalyzed by the enzyme vitamin K epoxide reductase, right? This one, vitamin K epoxide reductase, right? And converted into vitamin K quinone. Again this quinone undergoes reduction reaction with the help of enzyme vitamin K reductase and converted into its active form vitamin K hydroquinone. In this hydroquinone again participated into the carboxylation of glutamate residue of this different clotting factor, right? And help to activate the clotting factor for the coagulation process, right? So it is the mechanism of action of vitamin K. Now application of vitamin K. Phytodiene, that is vitamin K, is the form of most often used vitamin K therapeutically, right? Phytodiene is the form of vitamin K which is most oftenly used therapeutically, right? And this is known as the vitamin K1. Vitamin K1 is safe for use in infants, pregnant women and also in patient with glucose 6-phosphate deficiency, right? Vitamin K1 has faster onset than other vitamins, right? Because this phytodiene or vitamin K1 is more lipid soluble than other vitamin K, right? So due to more lipid solubility of this vitamin, it has the faster onset of action than other vitamins, right? Vitamin K1 is effective in inducing coagulation when administered orally, subcutaneously, intramuscularly or intravenously, right? So vitamin K1 is effective in all most of route of administration, that is oral route, subcutaneous route, intramuscular or intravenous route, right? Then prophylaxis and treatment of bleeding due to deficiency of clotting factors in the following situations, right? The use of vitamin K is in prophylaxis and treatment of bleeding due to deficiency of clotting factors in the following situations, which are dietary deficiency of vitamin K, prolonged antimicrobial therapy, obstructive jaundice or malabsorption syndromes, liver disease, that is cirrhosis or viral hepatitis, and in newborns. Next one is antifibrinolytic agents. These antifibrinolytic agents control fibrinolytic status. Fibrinolytic effect, that means that cause the degradation of the fibrin clot, right, and inhibit the coagulation process. Antifibrinolytic effect, that means that inhibit the degradation of clot, right? So they are help to control fibrinolytic status, right, and thus help to maintain coagulation, right? Control of variety of hemorrhagic states that can be achieved using a number of synthetic antifibrinolytic agents. For example, tranexamic acid and aminocaproic acid, right? Structure of these both acids have been seen. Next, mechanism of action of antifibrinolytic agents, right? As we know that this is the last step of the or final step of the coagulation process. Thrombin activator protein activate the prothrombin to the thrombin, right? Prothrombin activator cause the activation of thrombin to prothrombin, and this thrombin cause the activation of fibrinogen to the fibrin, right? And this fibrin make the cross-linked polymer fibrin with blood, right? Blood cells, and form the clot. Now, in this process, plasminogen, it is the inactive form that get activated by plasminogen activator and converted into plasmin, right? And this plasmin cause the degradation of this cross-linked polymer, right? Plasminogen cause the degradation of this fibrin cross-linked clot, right, and converted into fibrin degradation products, right, and it get cleared off, right? So plasmin produces the fibrinolytic effect, right, on the blood clot. Plasmin produces the fibrinolytic effect on the blood clot. Now our drug inhibit the binding of this plasmin with the clot, right? So it inhibit the plasmin, it bind with the plasmin and inhibit the binding with blood clot, and that's why inhibit the fibrin degradation and make the coagulation process maintained, right? So it is the mechanism of action of antifibrinolytic agent. Then uses of antifibrinolytic agents. These are used in the prevention of rebleeding in intracranial hemorrhages, also as adjunctive in hemophilia, and of course in the treatment of bleeding associated with fibrinolytic therapy. Then miscellaneous agents, fibrinogen, first one is fibrinogen is fraction of human plasma, right? Fibrinogen is the fraction of human plasma is employed to control bleeding in hemophilia, antihemophilic globulin deficiency, and acute antifibrinogenemic status, right? Antihemophilic globulin, it is the blood factor 8, right? Antihemophilic, so in deficiency of factor 8, fibrinogen will help to maintain the coagulation process. Then antihemophilic agent, it is concentrated human antihemophilic AHG, that is antihemophilic globulin, and that is prepared from pooled human plasma, right? And it is indicated along with human fibrinogen in hemophilia in AHG deficiency. Then protamine sulfate. Protamine is an arginine-rich, highly basic group of simple protein that is derived from salmon, that is fish, one type of fish, salmon sperm. It has been approved in the USA as specific antagonist to heparin since 1968. As we know that heparin is anticoagulant, right? So protamine is antagonist of heparin. It inhibits the action of the heparin, right? So ultimately inhibit the anticoagulation, right? So favor the coagulation process. The highly acidic heparin polysaccharides, right, exhibit their anticoagulant activity through binding to antithrombin 3, right? Heparin molecule produces its anticoagulant activity by binding with antithrombin 3, right? And this protamine inhibit the binding of heparin to the antithrombin 3 and inhibit the anticoagulant activity, right? Because of protamine, heparin has increased affinity for protamine relative to the antithrombin 3, right? As we see in normal anticoagulant activity, heparin attach with the antithrombin 3 and produces the anticoagulant activity. But in presence of protamine, heparin has the increased affinity for the protamine as compared to antithrombin 3. That means now heparin more bind with protamine as compared to antithrombin 3 and inhibit the anticoagulant activity, right? Binding affinity for protamine is so much greater than that of antithrombin 3, right? And that's why protamine induces the dissociation of heparin antithrombin 3 complex, and that's why inhibit the anticoagulation process. And that's why it favor the or maintain the coagulation status. Dose of protamine sulfate is 50 mg in 5 ml. Injection can be used. So here our coagulant agents topic is completed. Thank you.